You can put an end to generational trauma. Yes, generational trauma is a thing, and the first step to healing from it and putting an end to it is to identify that it happened. Trust me, there's no parent on the planet who plans to traumatize their children or to abuse their children. No parent sits and thinks, you know what, I'm going to make this child's life hell and I'm going to traumatize this child and make their life miserable. No, there's no parent who sits and thinks about it and does it consciously. But unfortunately, the parents who do it are the ones who have been abused themselves, but never identified it, never healed from it, and hence transfer it to the next generation. The purpose of this video is to create awareness. It's for parents who have little children, it's for adults working with children in any other surrounding, and it is for people who have been through childhood abuse and have never been able to identify it because they are unaware. Any vulnerable person can be abused, irrespective of the age or gender or any other human difference. However, in this video, I will be addressing childhood abuse. Let's dive into it straight away. So, what is abuse? Abuse refers to harmful or injurious treatment of another human being. There are various kinds of abuse, but in this video, I will be talking about physical abuse, verbal abuse, and emotional or psychological abuse. By the way, emotional and psychological abuse is used interchangeably. Let's begin by talking about physical abuse. Physical abuse is referred to the use of physical force against another human being that results in bodily injury, physical pain, or impairment. A few examples would be hitting, beating, pinching, pulling the hair, depriving someone of sleep, punching, kicking, and there's many other ways of inflicting physical pain on another human being. Verbal abuse is the regular and consistent use of words, gestures, or written language to demean, frighten, or control someone. And that could include labeling, belittling, humiliating, using curse words, gaslighting, rebuking, yelling, criticizing. We have to remember also that verbal abuse can be done by shouting and yelling, but it also can be done in very subtle ways. It is basically the pattern of speaking with an intent to humiliate, demean, threaten, or blame someone. Emotional or psychological abuse is a pattern of behaviors, speech, or actions done by a significant adult to a child. Now, if you note, emotional psychological abuse includes both speech and action again, which means it includes both physical and verbal abuse. That shows that verbal and physical abuse never happen independent of psychological abuse. What's meant by that? I shall explain. So, as I mentioned earlier, physical abuse causes physical bruises or pain. But physical abuse does not happen independently. It's always accompanied by psychological abuse, which causes mental damage and internal wounds. Once I was having a conversation with someone about physical abuse, and she goes on to say, I wonder how some children who are beaten up get impacted while others don't. I was quite taken aback by that question, and I went on to respond by saying, it's not the mere act of hitting that causes real damage, but it is the temperament of the person inflicting that pain. It is the negative emotional intensity that's created in that surrounding. And it is the helplessness of the child felt in that moment that causes the real harm and psychological wounds. To elaborate further, it is the abuser's temperament of anger, control, authority, stress that is transferred onto the child in that moment, which causes the child to, in that moment, feel fear, shame, guilt, and a lack of self worth. Let's take a real life simple scenario to understand this better. Let's imagine there's a parent who already has anger issues at the core. Now, this parent is also facing a lot of stress at the workplace. Imagine this parent comes home after a regular day of work and the child runs to the parent happily with a glass of water. Now, while the child approaches the parent, the glass falls down, breaks, and the water spills all over. This agitates the parent, and he goes on to say, "What a good for nothing you are! You can't get one thing right," and slaps the child and hits the child in some other way. Now, let's look at this situation in two perspectives. Here, the parent's emotional state is a neutral, right? The parent is feeling stressed. Maybe the parent is tired, frustrated, and also has underlying anger issues, which created an anger outburst. This parent has now vented out all those mixture of intense emotion on that child. Now let's imagine what this child must be feeling in this moment. Clueless of where this anger outburst is coming from, the child has received beating, harsh words, but what causes the real psychological trauma here is the temperament of the parent. The child is instantly emotionally disturbed by the guilt of upsetting the parent. The child feels fear of the parent's anger outburst, feels ashamed about what just happened, even though it was a mistake. The child internalizes all of what just happened, the parent's reaction and the parent's feelings. The child feels like a good for nothing in this moment, and the self worth of this child crashes down to a zero. You know, children are too small to understand the underlying reasons of an adult's anger outburst or an adult's reaction to physical abuse or verbal abuse. Like in this example, the child could never imagine that, oh, my parent has anger issues anyway. Maybe he's just had a bad day. Maybe he's tired and, maybe she's just upset about something. Maybe the parent is not upset really on me, but there's other reasons for the parent being upset. The child can't reason out and see all of these things, right? Therefore, the child takes all the blame to themselves. What I just narrated to you is one incident, one very tiny incident. There could be so many other incidents of this sort that happen in one day or on different occasions repeatedly. And this is what causes trauma. By the way, when any human being is exposed to continuous abuse, they reach to a state called learned helplessness. I shall put the definition of the same in the description box and also make another video for you to understand that concept better in the near future. It is important for us to understand that physical bruises heal over a period of time. They might leave a scar on the body. However, psychological wounds impact your body, mind, and brain. They take a very long time to heal from, and sometimes a lifetime. In the next part of this video, I will go on to explain verbal abuse and psychological or emotional abuse more in detail. Stay tuned for much more on childhood abuse and trauma. I'll see you next time.